everybody to today's CSE Talks. CSE Talks is part of a series of interviews, which is part of a project co-financed by the European Parliament, and this project is called We EP, and it is actually aiming at bringing closer to our members and their affiliates the activities of the European Union in general and of the European Parliament in particular, because we also have the feeling there should be some more awareness raising about the fact that, of course, the European Union in the past has been considered very often as an instrument, or let's say a construct, which leads to the undermining of social rights. And we believe also there are certain reasons to believe that the European Union is not always the worst construct in order to come to social cohesion and maybe even to a social platform, social standard, which might be better than we actually think. Today with us, we have Dimitrios Papadimoulis, member of the European Parliament from the GUE group and Vice President responsible for gender equality and diversity, and of course also for the trade union. Mr. Papadimoulis, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you too.
I was mentioning it, the EU is often referred to as having contributed to undermining social rights. Can you maybe also give concrete examples of the past where it would show the opposite, where what was and has been also in these specific cases the role of the European Parliament?
If we want to be honest, we have to admit that in the last decades we have an increase of inequalities and an increase also of the social dumping inside the European Union. And now with the pandemic, we have additional inequalities because of the recession, which hits directly more youth and women. If you see the last Eurobarometer, you could see that for a very large part of the European citizens, it is a top priority to improve the solidarity between the member states and to improve our social agenda. It is also honest to say that in the last months we have some positive reactions, like the Recovery Fund with a lot of grants and not only loans. And also in the last years, the establishment of the European Social Pillar, trying to improve the social agenda. But the key point is the implementation of the European Social Pillar. And on that, I think that we have a lot of work to do together, the European Parliament and the trade unions. And because it is very important not to keep that social pillar as an etiquette, just empty words. It is important to implement that, and that needs resources. Needs additional resources related with the RRF, the Recovery and Resilience Fund, with the multi-annual budget of the Parliament. It is important to keep the European Union as the part of the globe in which the social state and the social agenda remains strong and even stronger, because we have in the heart of Europe a lot of decline of the social protection and a very dangerous increase of the poverty and of the social injustice.
Mr. Papadimoulis, you were mentioning the issue of the European Pillar of Social Rights, the issue of implementation, but also the reaction so far of the European Union for the recovery after or during the coronavirus impact. Do you think it has been an advantage, or it is an advantage for the average worker to live and work in the EU? And if so, Why would it be so, according to you?
If someone could compare the living standards of a worker in the EU in comparison with the Western Balkans, for example, or in Latin America, of course, we are in a better condition. But if we compare the living standards of a worker of today in the European Union, comparing with the same worker, the parent of a new worker, 30 years ago, things are worse because we have, during the last decades, a social dumping. When I was at first elected in the European Parliament, we had the famous Bolkestein Directive, the Polish plumber, which created a lot of social dumping. So it is important to see new tools and new efforts, legislative proposals, but also implementation, which could decrease that social distance between the poorer and the richer. I could give you an example. The program SURE, the SURE initiative, which is designed as a positive step. Not enough, to my understanding, but it's a positive step. And I think that we have to take some lessons from the past, because the situation of the workers in the European Union, it is not better than 20 years ago. It's worse. We have a stagnation of the salaries for more than 20 years in the European average. And we have also many countries, like my country in Greece, in which we have a very serious decrease, not only of salaries, but also combined with an increase of unemployment and also a decrease of the social rights. So for the pro-Europeans, for the supporters of the idea of the unification process, the European unification process, it is better not to promote the existing situation, but to fight to have a better, more united, more social, inclusive Europe in order to achieve better results and to become again the European project more attractive and more effective socially.
Mr. Papadimoulis, you were mentioning the recovery plan and the recovery and resilience programs. And you said we should fight now for the European Union to become better, more united, more inclusive. How can the EU and the EP make sure that the workers will actually benefit, and to which aspects should we pay particular attention when it comes to these recovery and resilience plans, according to you?
I think that we are in a very crucial moment. Just a few days ago, it started the implementation of the Recovery and Resilience Fund, and it's a positive step. It is the first time that we have a common European loan in order to create a strong European fund to support the weaker part of the European Union in the south and in the east. But we have also to protect the weakers inside every member state. So it is important the national plan, the holistic national plans, which will be submitted from the governments to the Commission and to the Council, to have a strong social pillar. It is important for the preparation of that national plan to have the stronger possible social dialogue with the trade unions, with the regions, with the civil society. It's not a project only for a governmental elite in every member state. And There are tools, and also the European Parliament in the whole trialogue, the whole discussion with the Council and the Commission about that fund, we were and we will stay as a strong defender of the strongest possible dialogue, because it is important that money, which is big amount of money for the coming years, to go to the right direction. We have a strong social pillar in that Recovery and Resilience Fund, aside of the green transition or the digital transition. We have a strong social pillar, and we need a real content on that, prepared with a good cooperation with the trade unions in order to have and to achieve positive results, reducing exclusion, social exclusion, reducing poverty, reducing the rise of unemployment, and protecting special social categories like the youth or women.
When we look at the future, when we look basically at the post-COVID time, which will hopefully come one day, what do you think, in very few words, what will be decisive so that we can make sure the jobs are kept and quality jobs can be kept as much as possible?
I'll try to be brief. Top priority, the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights. A legislative proposal from the Commission to be implemented without delays on the European Unemployment Reinsurance Scheme. An effective legal instrument to ensure that every worker in the Union has a fair minimum wage. A legislation for the workers on the digital platforms and their rights. And also, it is important for the Commission to come forward with a legislation on the right to disconnect without any delay on that, as we see from strong lobbies which try to push for a serious delay of that legislation. The European Commissioner, Mr. Schmit, has a positive agenda, and the majority of the Parliament supports that agenda, and I think that also the trade unions are supporting that agenda. But that agenda has also, let's say, opponents or enemies inside the Commission and inside some governments in the Council. So I think that it is important not to keep saying on that social agenda empty words, and to create real content in the Göteborg agenda. Some years ago, the leaders had decided for a social agenda in Göteborg. Now we have to put real content implementing that agenda.
Yeah, we are also looking very much forward from our side to see how the action plan for the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights will look like. And Mr. Papadimoulis, we are also very much aware that will be very soon time to act, both in terms of legislation or soft laws, but also in terms of finances, meaning money, as you said. But that also brings me to my final question, because very often it is not only about legislation, but about the implementation of something, about either the implementation through national laws, but also through the application of certain principles of these laws on the spot. What do you think how do you see the role of the trade union, you as being responsible for trade unions in the European Parliament, also as Vice President? Where do you see the crucial role now at this moment, but also beyond the COVID-19 crisis?
I think that the trade unions are a very important social partner. And the European Parliament I think that in the European Triangle is the more progressive part in comparison with the Commission and even more with the Council. So we need to improve the social dialogue. We want to strengthen our ties with the trade unions and to improve the role of the European parliaments and the trade unions in the dialogue for the preparation of the necessary legislation, for the implementation of that legislation, and also for the monitoring of that implementation. Not only as an MEP, but as the Vice President who is responsible on replacing the President of the Parliament, David Sassoli, in the relationship with the trade unions, I am very committed to improve the role of the trade unions permanently in that absolutely necessary social dialogue, because beyond the pandemic and after the pandemic, we will have to face a lot of additional inequalities, and we have to fight against that.
Mr. Vice President, thank you very much for the interview. All the best to you for the future. And as you can imagine, on many of these dossiers you just mentioned, we will be pushing or pulling into the same direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. I'm also a member of the Econ Committee and the Budget Committee, and I will be present also with my capacity in that files, fighting for the workers' rights and as a strong supporter and friend of the trade unions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Papadimoulis.